The Madman! Welcome to Galakrond's Awakening, the official star ratings. Starting with Druid, we've got Winged Guardian coming out week 1, and it's already making a little bit of a splash in Embiggen Druid. There's also the possibility of the Beast Druids using Predatory Instincts and Witching Hour, cards like Undasta, as well as Witchwood Grizzly to form some sort of beast package. That doesn't seem to be very good, but just putting this in as a general big Druid card seems to be working. 4 stars. Rising Winds, 5 stars. The more I think about this card, the more I compare it to Firefly. Firefly is a 1 mana 1/2 that gets you a 1/2. Rising Winds, if you even take out the choose one option, it's a 3/2 that gets you a 3/2. But suppose you're at the part of a game where 3/2 doesn't do anything, like it's really late in the game, then just draw a card and then draw another card. Or if you want to do a middle option, then that's cool too. I mean, this card does synergize with the quest, it does synergize with Stellaris, so I think people are sleeping on Rising Winds. And finally we have Steel Beetle. I'm going to give 3 stars. This is the card that's going to make Druid probably the best anti-aggro deck, alongside Winged Guardian. Currently, the deck that plays the most 5 or more cost spells is Token Druid, so you put the Steel Beetle into that deck if there's a lot of aggro around and you become like an aggro demolisher. Which is why I put it as 3 stars, because I don't think all the Truant Druids are going to run Steel Beetle. It's going to depend on how much aggro there is. But Face Hunter hates this card. For Hunter, week 1's card is Fresh Scent, 4 stars. It's currently not seeing enough play to justify the 4-star rating, but this is extra arms except pre-nerf. This card was so good in Priest that they had to nerf it to 3 mana, and now it's back. It can only target beasts, but there are a lot of good beasts in Hunter. And when I pieced together the beast deck, I was like, yeah, this is pretty good. It's certainly a card that boosts the power level of that deck. Chop Shop Copter, 1 star. I don't really see this as being synergetic with anything that Hunter plans to run right now. If you were planning to do Mech Hunter, then Face Hunter is currently better than it. And we have Rotnest Drake, 5 stars. What a beast of a dragon. 5 mana, 6/5, comes with a Deadly Shot. So this is like 2 mana for a 6/5, plus you bundled into a card, and bundling usually adds 2 mana. So this is like a 0 mana 6/5. Currently, the way that you're running Dragon Hunter is maybe you run the Dragon package in a Highlander Hunter deck because the Stormhammer is the payoff. But maybe Rotnest Drake is so powerful, and maybe Stormhammer is so powerful, and maybe Corrosive Breath is so powerful that Dragon Hunter is finally tier 1. For Mage, week 1's card is Animated Avalanche. It's a big elemental that just summons another big elemental. It's 7 mana for 14/12 in stats. Pretty good, but Elemental Mage is currently not really there, and I think it's still not there yet. I think where it will be there is potentially with Arcane Amplifier. Well-stated elemental that is a constant threat, basically has taunt. If it doesn't die, your hero power does an insane thing. Arcane Amplifier has 2 modes. You can play it as just a 3 mana 2/5. You can play it as a 5 mana 2/5. Use it with the hero power to basically deal 2 extra damage. Pretty sweet. You play it with Elemental Allies, you play it with Elemental Evocation, you have your happy little Elemental package. Maybe you put the Elemental package into a Highlander Mage deck, maybe you put the Elemental and a Dragon package into Elemental Dragon Highlander stuff. Speaking of Highlander, the amazing Reno! Make all minions disappear, poof, basically Plague of Death effect. And the constant effect is, at the start of your turn, cast a random spell. Passive hero power. I consider that to be quite powerful. I think casting a random spell is worth about 1 to 2 mana. So you're generating 1 to 2 mana value every turn. So amazing Reno, I'm going to give 4 stars. I think that the Highlander Mage can be tier 2. Maybe they add in the Elemental package. The reason why I'm a little bit less certain about Animated Avalanche than Arcane Amplifier is because I think Arcane Amplifier is better than Animated Avalanche. Maybe you just don't have 7 mana spare to pay for the Avalanche. Seems like a good ender card, but maybe not all elemental decks want it. Team Paladin got Air Raid on week 1. Air Raid, 1-star card. Paladin is on the decline, and Mech Paladin I don't think can actually slot in Air Raid when I really think about it. What they can slot in though is Shotbot, which I'm going to give 5 stars, because I think with Shotbot, Mech Paladin has a very reasonable chance of becoming tier 1. I mean, really good to have a 2-mana play. You curve the Shotbot into the Skyclaw, and that's great. A Mech Paladin was looking exactly for something like a shielded mini-bot, and Shotbot is basically shielded mini-bot. A Scale Lord, 1 star. There are a number of Murloc/Dragon interactions right now, but it's not happening, I think, despite the Scale Lord being very efficiently statted. Priest! Oh, Priest. Week 1, Priest got Dark Prophecy. 1 star? Dark Prophecy actually could see a little bit of play in Combo Priest. On average, you're getting a 2/6/3/5. Sometimes you high roll, but I think just not quite good enough to make the cut there. And really, Combo Priest wasn't really doing that well anyways. A Cleric of Scales, 1 star. Really powerful effect, 1 mana 1/1 that gets you a card, a spell from your deck. It's like Shadow Visions except better since it's 1 mana instead of 2. It's not a copy of the spell, it's the actual spell itself, so in that respect it's a little bit worse than Shadow Visions. But I looked through all of the Priest spells that you can get, and it's like, what do you really want? Mass Hysteria, I guess? Like, if you could guarantee getting a spell by a certain turn, would Priest be OP? And the answer I came up with is no. It's like, it doesn't really matter. The Priest spells are all So I'm not seeing the Priest Dragon deck come together here. And Aeon Reaver is... It's nice. It's a 6 mana 4/4 dragon, which basically kills a guy. It's a bit like Flick. Aeon Reaver is good, but it's not going to push Dragon Priest to be good enough. When you look at the Aeon Reaver along with the Cleric of Scales, I don't think that's a deck. Rogue's card, week 1, is Shadow Sculptor. I'm going to give that a 2 star. It feels like Shadow Sculptor could be really good in Galakrond Rogue, especially when you pair it up with the coin generation. Similar to jnZaneHD Auctioneer, except Shadow Sculptor costs 1 mana less. So that's pretty sweet, but when you consider that jnZaneHD Auctioneer wasn't even really considered, will Shadow Sculptor really see play? The main problem is that these Galakrond Rogue decks don't need that much tempo, don't need that much card advantage rather. Just kill the opponent with your tempo instead. And Galakrond Rogues are currently doing that to great success. Myra's is not even considered in Galakrond Rogue, and Myra's could draw you up to 10 cards. Skyvateer, 1 star. This card just doesn't currently fit in any rogue deck. It's below the power level. It's actually below the power level of Loot Hoarder as I see it, because I prefer a 2/1 with Death Rattle draw a card over a 1/3 Death Rattle draw a card. But it should be mentioned that this card has a few synergies. Pirate, Stealth, Death Rattle. Those could all synergize with rogue mechanics in the future. So maybe Skyvateer sees play eventually later when Stealth becomes important, or Pirates become important, or when Death Rattle becomes important, but not now. Waxmancy, 1 star. When I originally looked at this card and I compared it with Primordial Glyph, I was like, well, Primordial Glyph saw play everywhere, so shouldn't Waxmancy see play everywhere? But I started to browse through the list of Battlecry minions, and there is a lot of trash here. Even though you will, on average, when you discover a card, get the 75th percentile, 25th percentile, which is to say that on average you get a card that is, the 25th percent best card of all battle cries out there. That's not great. Sure, there are a few high rolls out there like Zephyrus or Dragon Queen Alexstrasza if you're playing the Highlander deck, which is probably the most likely place where you'd put in Waxmancy, but there is a lot of trash. Just trust me on this one. There's a lot of bad Battlecry minions, and there's no longer class bonus. Shaman. I wonder if Galakrond Shaman was really, really powerful, and some of these cards are like purposely given the side grade or being not so good in order to cover for that. Because this is a load of trash. Eye of the Storm, out week 1. I'm gonna give that a 1 star. It's 13 mana for 15/18 in stats. If you're paying 10 mana for this and they deal with it on their turn, you get a handicap on the next turn. Fist of Rodden goes with the Eye of the Storm, I suppose, but even if you're summoning a 10-cost legendary, that's not necessarily that great. Seems a bit slow. Is constant value, but I don't think Control Shaman is anywhere near powerful enough. And then finally there's Explosive Evolution. I'm going to give that a 1 star as well. I think you simply run Mutate. Maybe after Mutate rotates out, Explosive Evolution might get a chance to shine. But for 2 more mana, you're getting +2 transformation. I think a lot of the transformation value comes from getting rid of a understated card which has already traded, so it has fewer health points. So a lot of the value is just in the transform part. So adding 2 mana to get 2 more transformation mana curve isn't that good. And I'm just being told that mutate and explosive rotate at the same time. That's kind of funny. So rip explosive evolution. Twisted Knowledge, 1 star. It's Warlock cards, and boy does Control Warlock not want a lot of zoo type cards. There's a lot of trash out there. Basically just tap. Because if you just tap, you're getting +1 card advantage. If you play Twisted Knowledge, you're getting +1 card advantage. But the Warlock cards that you discover are going to usually be worse than the cards in your deck. Fiendish Servant, 4 stars. I think that Fiendish Servant is great in Zoo, / Galakrond Zoo. When I compared it with Blazing Battle Mage, I thought Fiendish Servant was better. It may see play alongside Blazing Battle Mage, it may see play replacing Blazing Battle Mage. Ultimately, I think it'll be a strong card in that deck. But I don't know if Zoo is going to be tier 1. And Chaos Gazer, 5 stars. Good in all types of Warlock, I think. This is a disruption card, which sometimes doesn't disrupt your opponent because they would have just paid the mana and played it anyways, but often will make your opponent change the plans in order to actually play the card that you've corrupted. And along with the 3 mana for 4/3 stat line, that's just very solid. And also, fun combo, by the way. Your opponent plays the Kronks, and they draw the Galakrond. You play your Chaos Geyser, maybe it targets the Galakrond, and then you play Boom Pistol Bully, and then bam, Galakrond is gone. That's a cool little combo you can think about. But ultimately, I just see this as like a dirty rat, which your opponent still has to pay mana for. Warrior's Week 1 card definitely had the highest impact out of any of them. Bomb Wrangler, 5 stars. It's generally replacing the Quartermaster right now as your 3 mana 2/3 of choice. It's Imp Gang Boss, which summons Boom Bots instead. There was a good comparison that Quartermaster drew you a lackey, but Bomb Wrangler's Boom Bot is basically also a lackey. And sometimes you get more than 1 Boom Bot out of it, which is particularly insane. Boom Squad, 1 star. I think the most likely deck for Boom Squad to go in would be Highlander Warrior, but there are 30 better cards than putting in a card that discovers a card. It's the 1 mana tax isn't worth it, basically. And Risky Skipper, 1 star. I don't think that Warrior really wants a minion-based activator to deal damage to all minions. I don't think the self-damage Warrior is really there right now, and I don't think this is an engine that they really want. For neutrals, Licensed Adventurer, 1 star. Released week 1, doesn't really seem to be much of an impact. First of all, just run Questing Explorer instead, and then would you run Licensed Adventurer and Questing Explorer? Well, I think that the coin is substantially less good than the card. And really, there aren't that many quests out there right now for if you control a quest. Which is why I'll just talk about Sky General Crag right now. That's a pretty good card if you have played a quest. And this is better because you don't have to have the quest. You can finish the quest and then play Sky General Crag. You're getting 6/5 worth of stats, of which 4/2 of it have Rush, and 2/3 of it have Taunt, which is a really good split. I think Sky General Crag is going to see play in Quest Hunter for sure, and I think that might be the only deck it'll see play in. 4 stars. This does also work with side quests, but I think if you're running side quests, you need to run all 4, 2 of each, for Sky General Crag to be consistent enough. Skydiving Instructor, 2 stars. The deck that I see this most in would be Zoo. Zoo's got a number of 1-cost minions, which would make this card pretty efficient when you played it. 3 mana 2/2, summoning your Flame Imp, your Blazing Battle Mage, your Voidwalker, or perhaps your new card, Fiendish Servant, all seem pretty good. I think this card will see more experimentation once we see the 1-drop Warlock card enter play. Escaped Mana Saber, 4 stars. I see this as a generally good card that should see play in a number of decks. Highlander decks most likely. The 4 mana 3/5 stealth stat line is pretty decent. It was on Halftime Scavenger, and Halftime Scavenger saw a little bit of play. Gaining 1 mana crystal is better than gaining 3 armor. Curve into a 6-drop. There are a number of good 6-drops right now. Kronks is probably the best one, but if you're rogue, you can curve into a Shield of Galakrond plus a Lackey also. Frenzied Fellwing, 5 stars. This is the card most people are murmuring about. Hopefully Blizzard gave the free 3/3 proper testing, because Of course, you're going to put this into decks that plan to cast this for 0 mana or 1 mana. Most likely deck I see for this card would be Zoo, where you play the Flame Imp turn 1, and then you hit them for 3, and then you play maybe 2 Frenzied Fellwings. That's pretty insane. Any other decks similar to that would be good. Decks that develop stuff on turn 1 and then follow up are the most likely candidates. Surprisingly, Face Hunter, which purposely does damage to the face, may not be that good because Face Hunter doesn't actually deal damage to the face that fast. It just does a lot of face damage at the end. But yeah, look out for this card in Zoo, Galakrond Warrior, Token Druid, a number of decks. Fun fact, by the way, this is a DMN, and you'll see it in aggro deck, so you're actually gonna play Zephyrus and Sack Pact Frenzied Fellwing all the time, probably. Grandalaki Urk, 3 stars. There are 2 main decks that can run the Grandalaki Urk. First one is the Galakrond Rogue deck, with or without Highlander. You play this card, you play a bunch of lackeys, you generate a bunch of lackey value. That's pretty sweet. The main downside is the more lackeys you play, the more board space you need. And Tempo Rogue generally wants to be the one on the board. They don't want to be playing from 0 cards on the board. So you're limited by the amount of cards you can play. That may end up being too late of value for Rogue. Other possibility is some sort of Warlock deck, perhaps of Takan. Because when your lackeys are 4/4s, that becomes much better when you're playing onto an empty board. Maybe some sort of control lackey deck. Your finishing turn would be Urk, lackey, 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 lackey. You get a bunch of 4/4s on the board. That looks pretty sweet. Boom Pistol Bully, 5 stars. This card, I think, goes into every single Highlander deck, and I think it goes into a number of decks that just want to add a card to fill. Mid-range decks, namely. Because this card interferes with a lot of plays. From Galakrond Rogue, a lot of their cards, most of their cards, have Battlecry. So you just play this and you get them good. All the Galakronds literally have the word Battlecry on them. All the Galakrond Invokes have Battlecry on them. Just so many cards right now in the meta have Battlecry. So you play this, maybe you lock your opponent out of a turn, maybe you make your opponent play a turn that they don't want to. It's basically more common to hit the opponent than Loatheb, but what it fails to do is protect your board, because Loatheb protected your board from spells such as Flame Strike. Boom Pistol Bully just bullies your opponent into not playing a large portion of their cards, but they can play other cards, which may be answers. Still, though, I think just being able to deny him so many possible plays is great. And finally, Hellbringer Pack Filler 1 star. It's 5 mana 3/4 that summons 2/1/1s. The 2/1/1s have a nice bonus, but whatever. Also an elemental, but whatever. I don't think good enough to run an elemental mage, which is probably the deck that would most likely have this be in play. So there you have it. Galakrond's Awakening cards. We got a number of cards in here that will shake things up, shake up who's the kingpin. But ultimately, I think the purpose of 35 card adventures is mostly to shore up decks that aren't the tier 1 and then might boost them from tier 3 to tier 2 or tier 2 to tier 1. I think it's very rare for tier 1 decks to get stuff, which is good design.